what are liberal values? This is a hard question. As soon as you get into the definition of liberalism, you have debates. No one has the same terminology. But at the end of the day, there is a coherent tradition. And John Locke is perhaps the starting point for it. That's not to say that only British liberalism is real. It's not to say that somehow everyone has to emulate Western or British or American liberalism. But it is to say that there are some values and some ideological principles that emerged out of Lockean liberalism and were then diffused through continental Europe and to the whole world, which are based on some simple principles. First, the sanctity of individual freedom, and in particular individual rights. Second, some connection to the right of individual property, that there should be a market that allows people to possess and alienate property. And most importantly, rule of law, that there are procedures that are impersonal, that are reasonably fair, and that include all citizens. Even though that, of course, liberalism started with just white male property owners, it is proven to be possible to extend liberal values and liberal ideas to wider and wider ranges of people on the planet, ultimately everyone. So in a way, it's a beautiful utopia. If you have liberalism on a world scale, as Kant was the first to really recognize, you can have perpetual peace because you have a framework of legal negotiation, you have a framework of inclusion of populations and democracies that are able to overcome interstate problems through discussion, through negotiation, through positive sum solutions. I don't mind being idealistic about liberalism because we're missing that idealism today. We're having too many debates about zero-sum struggles, one nation versus another, walls that need to be built instead of interconnections that can be forged. Where are we today in the 21st century? That liberal project is in terrible danger. It is now mostly the case that electorates are cynical about the promises of liberalism. Even the word liberalism has been transformed into something we now usually call neoliberalism. And many people hate that idea. It sounds like a subordination of their nation to the market, to some kind of international banking cartel. But of course, if you go back to the original source of liberal ideals, that's not what it really was about. It was about something more fundamental. Freedom of the individual against state oppression, freedom of the individual to express individuality in political life, in public life. So perhaps our remedy to the current crisis is to go back to those original ideals. Not to make a dogma of liberalism, not again to say it's only Lockean liberalism or Kantian liberalism that can solve world problems, but instead to rethink how to retrieve what's valuable in the liberal tradition in countries like Russia, which are not as known for liberalism, but which do have vibrant liberal traditions, in countries like Germany, which has had a powerful liberal tradition for many centuries, as well as the United States and Britain and other liberal powers. Beyond that, we need now to talk about a liberalism that can work on a global scale, that isn't just a liberalism of the North, of the developed countries, but is genuinely a liberalism of inclusion, of less developed countries, of the world. It's exactly in Russia that we see what happens when those are denied by the state. And so it would be a terrible mistake for us to miss the Russian dimension of this discussion. I think far too often we group all Russians together as if somehow Putin represents everybody. This is a country of 140 million people, highly educated, very diverse. And obviously in that huge society of educated people, opinions differ. There are lots of robust traditions that are plural and that counter what's going on at the top level of the state. So by retrieving those discussions, we in the West who support liberal values can come across as supporters of Russian development as opposed to those who attack only everything that Russia does. It again is very difficult because there is a lot of distrust and a lot of cynicism on both sides. But the only way to start is to start. The only way to build liberal connections and to reclaim these discourses of human rights is to talk with our Russian colleagues and colleagues around the world about exactly how they can be built in current conditions.